Fight fans, welcome to the PBC Podcast, brought to you by Premier Boxing Champions with your host, Kenneth Bouhairie and Michael Rosenthal.
Welcome back, everyone, to the PBC Podcast. I'm Kenneth Bouhairie.
I'm Michael Rosenthal, editor of USA Today's Boxing Junkie.
Thanks, as always, for tuning in. It's been a while since we caught up with you guys. It's been a whirlwind, actually, but we've got a great episode for you this week. Obviously, Saturday night, Tszyu returns against Brian Mendoza for the WBO 154-pound title. We're going to break that down. Plus, we do have Tszyu joining us a little later in the show. And on Toe to Toe, we are going to look at the 3 PBC fights we want to see in 2024. I know, we're getting near the end of the year. Fans are buzzing, talking about what they want to see next fight. Fight fans are never happy. You announce a fight, and they're already looking at who the winner is going to face, of that fight. And speaking of fights that were announced, PBC announced a fight today. Saturday, November 25th, unbeaten two-time super middleweight champion David Benavidez taking on unbeaten 2 division world champion Demetrius Bouhairie at Mandalay Bay, Showtime Pay-Per-View, for the WBC interim super middleweight title. Mike, in my opinion, this fight, it gets no better in terms of a matchup.
Yeah, the first thing I thought of when I read that this fight was going to take place was very interesting. I think personally, Benavidez is the best 168-pounder, including Canelo Alvarez. But this is a really tricky matchup for him, which makes it particularly intriguing for me. Benavidez can pretty much walk down, hurt, and beat anyone. But Andrade isn't anyone. He's an excellent boxer, an excellent athlete, has that awkward style. He's a southpaw. He's never lost a fight. I can go on and on and on. He's just different. The point is that Andrade is so slick that I think he could cause problems for Benavidez. I think it's a really dangerous fight for Benavidez.
Yeah, I agree. And, I wonder, too, Benavidez has been at 68 for so long. He's had to struggle with weight issues before. Can he get himself down again, for this fight? In your opinion, why does David Benavidez win?
Well, I'm sort of like tipping my hand as far as my prediction, but I think he'll do what I suggested earlier. I think he'll walk down Andrade. He might have problems for a while, but he'll keep coming, with his intelligent pressure. He'll get to Andrade more and more as the fight progresses, and he'll slow him down. I just don't see him panicking or losing confidence. Even if he struggles for a while, he's that kind of fighter. He'll just keep coming no matter what. And in the end, I think he'll either stop Andrade later or win a clear decision. That's sort of the way it'll play out in my mind.
Yeah, I agree with you in terms of strategy. I mean, I think he's going to have to work behind that jab, and he's going to have to be busy, and he's going to have to walk Andrade down, and be clinical, be patient, be clinical, and certainly not reckless against someone like Andrade. Why does Demetrius Andrade win this fight?
Well, it's also what I suggested sort of a minute ago. Andrade has the ability to box and move for 12 rounds. So, I could see him sticking, from a safe distance, including his excellent jab, and moving out of harm's way before Benavidez can respond. The fight might come down to whether he can do that for 12 rounds without taking punches that hurt him. If he can't do that, as I said, I think Benavidez wins. If he can, I think he has a chance to outpoint Benavidez. Then he'd have his first defining victory. I mean, that would be enormous.
Yeah, sure would. And look, he does have some power in both hands, and he throws awkward, shots, weird angles at times, exactly. and he's clever in there. So it's a dangerous fight, but a great fight. In your opinion, is the winner the clear candidate to face Canelo Alvarez? I mean, do they move to the front of the line?
Yes, I think so. I've been saying for a long time now that Canelo has to fight Benavidez. It's a no-brainer from like a fan standpoint. And I think Benavidez is an even more compelling opponent if he takes down Andrade. If Andrade wins, yeah, he's the guy. I don't know whether Canelo would be as enthusiastic about fighting him as opposed to Benavidez. Again, his style is tough for anyone, but he would be first in line, as the way you put it. That said, I also like David Morrell as a potential opponent. Carlos Adames. There's rumors that he could move up, and a few other guys. So there's other options, but I think the winner of Benavidez-Andrade is the guy.
Well, I think you kind of answered the first part of this question, but How do you like their chances against Canelo? I assume you think David, at the very least, has a pretty good chance to beat him.
They both have a chance. I think Canelo made a nice statement against Charlo, but Benavidez is a different animal. He's not a good little guy like Charlo. He's a really good, really strong big guy who would be fighting Canelo on even terms. I'd pick Benavidez to win, although I acknowledge that it would be a tough fight for him. If Canelo is as healthy as he looked against Charlo, and Andrade would give Canelo problems for the same reasons he would give he'll give Benavidez problems. If he's on point, he could outbox Alvarez and win a decision. Although I think I'd pick Canelo in that fight. I don't think it's a guaranteed win for him.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, both are great fights. I want to see, certainly want to see Canelo fight the winner of this fight, and I think most fans would agree with that. And with that, let's jump right into the PBC fight of the week. It's going down Saturday night as PBC on Showtime returns to Broad Beach, Australia. Tszyu versus Brian Mendoza for the WBO 154-pound world title. Action here on the East Coast begins at 10 p.m. Eastern Time, and we start here with the essentials.
Okay, here we go. Tszyu is a perfect 23-0, 17 knockouts. Mendoza 22-2 with 16. Obviously, Tszyu is 5-0 in his last 5. He's got 3 KOs in those 5 fights. Mendoza 4-1 with 3 KOs. Last fight for Tszyu, first round knockout of Carlos Ocampo in June, this past June. Mendoza, huge win, 7th round knockout over Sebastian Fundora this past April. Tszyu has a 74% knockout ratio, Mendoza 73. Both guys can crack. Tszyu 117 rounds as a professional, Mendoza 89. Similar age, Tszyu is 28, Mendoza 29. Tszyu turned pro 2016, Mendoza 2014. Both fight from an orthodox stance. The dimensions are sort of interesting. Tszyu 5'8.5", Mendoza 5'10", but Tszyu has a longer reach, 72 inches to 70 for Mendoza. Tszyu is from Sydney, Australia, where the fight's going to take place. Mendoza's originally from Albuquerque, but lives in Las Vegas.
Well, we've got the essentials, but what can you tell us about both guys in your opinion? What are your thoughts on them as fighters?
Well, starting with Tszyu, I think he's a complete fighter. He's a good boxer. He's a good puncher, and he's just a badass in terms of his mentality. Is he super quick or athletic? Probably not, but he makes up for that with his timing and his feel for the game. He's just sort of like a born fighter. He does everything well. Mendoza is hot. Actually, they're both hot, but Mendoza's hot. And he has a lot of the same qualities as Tszyu. He's a good boxer. He's got real good power, as he demonstrated against both Jason Rosario and Sebastian Fundora in 2 knockout victories that sort of put him in this position. He was losing to Fundora, but that really doesn't matter. He was patient. He had patience. He had perfect timing, and his power came through when he needed it, which makes him really dangerous in any fight.
Yeah, for sure. You know what? I mean, I remember watching the Jason Rosario fight and thinking, man, Mendoza is really, really explosive. And so I gave him a really good shot against Fundora. What makes this fight, Tszyu and Mendoza, such a good matchup?
Well, sort of what I just said. First of all, they're just 2 hot guys. I mean, Tszyu is a really hot fighter, and so is Mendoza. I mean, with the victories over the guys that we just mentioned, they both have a lot of ability. They both have the power to hurt their opponents at any time. So the matchup is just intriguing, both in terms of their style. They're both really fun to watch, and their level of ability. These are just 2 really good all-around fighters. This is elite stuff, which makes the matchup appealing.
Exactly, and explosive stuff too. I mean,
Yep.
Don't blink in this fight. You touched on Mendoza's upset win over Fundora. How did you look to you that night? What were your thoughts on that fight?
Well, to be honest, I thought he was on his way to losing. He couldn't deal with Fundora's style or his height. At least that's the way it appeared to me, which is why Fundora had a big lead on all 3 cards when the ending came. But Mendoza never panicked. He maintained his patience. He just waited for his opportunity, and when it presented itself, he just landed a beautifully timed shot to end the fight. That was just a great punch. It wasn't a brilliant performance, I would say, but it was definitely a brilliant ending.
Yeah.
And again, it's why he's fighting Tszyu. That the victory over Rosario and the victory over Fundora. That's why he is where he is.
Yeah, you can't deny it. It's crazy, but this is Tszyu's third fight in 2023. The Tony Harrison fight, the stoppage win there. And then we saw what he did against Carlos Ocampo, just destroyed him. Is he the PBC Fighter of the Year if he beats Sebastian Fundora?
Well, he will have had a hell of a year, no doubt.
I'm sorry, I said Sebastian Fundora if he beats Brian Mendoza.
Oh yeah, I didn't even catch that. Okay, I knew what you were talking about. So anyway, he will have had a hell of a year, no doubt. With victories over Tony Harrison and Carlos Ocampo and Mendoza. I don't think he'd be fighter of the year. For me, Crawford is fighter of the year because of his victory over Spence. I'm not one of those guys who believes a fighter has to have more than one victory to win that award. I know some guys sort of feel that way. Crawford's victory was just so monumental that to me, he's kind of a no-brainer as fighter of the year. But I totally get why you asked that question. Just an enormous year for Tszyu if he wins, especially if he knocks out Mendoza. Enormous year, and it sort of just gives you a taste, I think, of what's to come after that.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. How does Tszyu win this fight? What are the keys to victory for him?
Well, I think Tszyu's main concern is just not getting careless because Mendoza can really crack. He's a really hard puncher. Tszyu needs to just be himself, be aggressive, look to hurt Mendoza. Just do it responsibly. Don't take unnecessary risks, and just always be aware of what might be coming back from Mendoza. I mean, you need to do that against any opponent, but I think in this case, you really have to be careful because this guy could hurt you at any time. If Tszyu's patient, I could see him winning rounds and breaking Mendoza down. I think that's probably what's going to happen.
Well, how about Mendoza? What are his keys to victory?
It's similar to the Fundora fight. Patience. I think Tszyu will probably build up a lead on the cards. Mendoza needs to just keep doing his thing. Keep looking for openings, keep looking to land big shots. I think if he can connect on enough big shots, I can see him hurting Tszyu. Maybe not instantaneously, but over time. And maybe if he does that, he wins the fight. I do think he can win the fight. I just don't think he will.
Yeah, he definitely. I mean, he's got the power, he's got the speed, he's got the explosiveness to land on Tszyu for sure. So you're picking Tszyu. That's your official pick. How does it go down?
Yeah, I think Tszyu does what I suggested earlier. I think he just sort of patiently breaks down Mendoza and wins either by a late knockout or a clear decision. I'll say KO 10.
Okay, I like that because I've got something similar. I'm going with Tszyu by late round stoppage too. I think he's going to break him. I just think the body shots are going to get to Mendoza ultimately and wear him down. And it's a dangerous fight for Tszyu, but I expect him to bust Mendoza up and deliver another statement victory. And speaking of Tszyu, he will be joining us now, as we mentioned, this Saturday, going up against Brian Mendoza, beginning at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time, live on Showtime. Tszyu. Tim, how's it going, man?
Yeah, very well.
I mean, obviously Saturday night versus Brian Mendoza. This is your third fight in 2023. Have you seen more improvement, maybe sharpness by being able to stay in the gym?
Oh, for sure. There's definitely improvements, especially when you're in the gym, in the gym grinding day by day. I think that's where you get better and better.
Now you've got Mendoza coming off a huge KO win over Sebastian Fundora. Actually, he's coming off two huge upset KO wins if we include the one over Jason Rosario. What are your thoughts on Mendoza as a fighter?
Yeah, I think he's talented. He's good at what he does. He's been proving everyone wrong, and yeah, he's on a roll.
What'd you think of that victory over Fundora? Were you surprised at all?
A little bit. No, look, Fundora's always a tough challenge. Fundora was landing a lot of shots at the same time, but he just got him in the right spot. Fundora was the one that made the mistake. It was simple. It's you make the mistake, you pay, and Fundora went with a wild left uppercut and took his right hand off the chin, and then it was a simple textbook left hook. Simple 1 second out of concentration, and that's all it took.
Sounds right to me. Given that both you and Mendoza are so explosive, is this a fight where you might have to box a little bit more? Are you looking to, meet fire by fire, fire with fire, or is he going to take it as it comes?
We'll see, man. We'll see. Whatever I feel like on the day.
Okay.
I like that answer. Now you've been recently upgraded to the full WBO champion now, I believe. Can you tell us what that means to you?
Doesn't mean much in all honesty. Still want the big names and the big titles. I'm not content until I have all 4 belts and the name Charlo and Mendoza on the resume. So one belt, just because Charlo didn't fight it's not rewarding for myself.
Now you've mentioned in interviews that you're approaching the Mendoza fight as if it's for the vacant title. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, I feel like at this level now, every fight should feel like a world title. You know, we're at that 1%ers now, fighting the very top of the division. So that mindset, world title on the line every time is what I keep striving.
So the man in the division, Jermell Charlo, still holds 3 world titles. Do you expect him to return to 54? And is that a fight that you still want?
That's all up to him, man. That's the question that everyone needs to ask him. What's he doing? Who knows? He might go on his 2-year vacation after this. So I don't know. It's all up to him. But if the opportunity arises and he is willing to get in, then I'm there.
If that fight doesn't take place, are there particular guys that you're interested in fighting?
Look, I think I do have options. I feel like there's plenty of different names in the division. I can even move up 160, 168. It really doesn't bother me.
Wow, 168.
Okay.
Would you make that leap 2 divisions, or is that something you want to build toward?
Oh, look, if the opportunity arises to fight someone, I'm there. You know, I'm there. Doesn't matter. Like, I'm walking around at that weight anyway, usually.
Gotcha. Now, you've also mentioned Terence Crawford as a possible opponent. In your opinion, how realistic is that fight for you? Yeah,
I think, look, Crawford's still got his Errol Spence fight rematch. I think Errol, I think there was a rematch clause, so I think he's activated it. So if he does decide to move to 154, or even Errol Spence, if any of them decide to move to 154, then look, I'd welcome that with both hands. I respect both of the fighters and be one cracker of a fight, that's for sure.
Yeah, I mean, I'd love to get your take on how that would play out, because honestly, that's a fight I would love. You versus Terence Crawford. What do you envision when you see those 2 styles, your style and his, in the ring?
Yeah, I think it'd be interesting. You know, I'm not just a brawler that moves forward. I'm quite smart, and I know he's a great counter puncher, and his IQ level's on that next level. So yeah, it'd be an interesting fight. It'd definitely be a challenging, toughest fight for sure. I believe so. But yeah, it's definitely something that I'd wake up to.
Now you're sort of a fixture now on the American boxing scene through Premier Boxing Champions and Showtime. We hear your name buzzing around with so many other top names. What would you like to accomplish when it's all said and done?
I'm not too sure. I just take it day by day, but I've got big term goals, of course. I just want to fight. I just want to be in the biggest fights possible, to represent myself and the people around me. So the biggest fights possible, different weight divisions, just legacy type things that can cement you in history books.
Do you feel like you're still just getting started? It seems like now you're just like getting right into your prime. Is that how you look at it too?
Yeah, I'm 28 years young. Still got another 10 years in the sport. So, there's so many more fights to be made. It's crazy.
It's fun.
Yeah.
So you've been at 54 pretty much your entire career. How much longer do you expect to remain in that division? I know we referred to it earlier, but I'm just curious if you have a timetable.
Probably 24. 2024 will be my last full year of 154.
Okay, that's pretty specific. Getting back to Saturday night, give us a prediction, if you will. Does it go the distance?
Look, I think it's going to be a cracker of a fight. It depends what I feel on the day, I guess. Maybe if I feel like going straight for the kill, then it might happen straight for the kill. Or if I decide to play it smart and just be cautious. Yeah, it depends on what I wake up to.
Okay. I guess all we can say is stay tuned, right?
Yeah, that's it. That's all you can say. Yeah.
Tim, it's always a pleasure. Thanks so much for giving us this time. Best of luck in this fight and going forward.
Yeah, I appreciate that.
It's time for Mike and I to go toe-to-toe, and this week's topic is 3 PBC fights for 2024. Looking ahead toward next year, and of course, we've got our wish list out. Mike, why don't you kick this one off with your first pick or third pick?
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if this might seem kind of random. I don't know, but I just love this potential matchup. David Morrell versus Carlos Adames. I think both of these guys would be a legitimate opponent for Canelo Alvarez right now. At the same time, I think they're both still in the process of proving themselves, maybe a better way of putting that is making names for themselves, which would I think that would make this just an ideal matchup for both guys. I think both guys have star quality in terms of both ability and their style of fighting. A victory in this fight would be a huge step forward for both guys. One that would, leave absolutely no doubt that they're, about their credentials as a legitimate title contender. And the bottom line for me, this is always important. It would just be a blast to watch this fight. So really, really high level fight, really important fight, and a fun fight to watch.
Yeah, I like that matchup too. Now, if Carlos Adames would have pulled that off, that would be huge. That would,
he moved to the head of the line.
Yeah, and rightfully so. That'd be one hell of a win. David Morrell, such a special fighter and looks, so good. And I believe he needs that win over name as well. The Adames would be really, really nice. I consider Caleb Plant for Morrell. Truthfully, I don't know if I know he looks great. I don't know if he's ready for, Caleb Plant, but
I like that matchup too.
Yeah, it's another great matchup.
Really different. But it's
completely different matchup. This one would be really explosive, and I could see someone getting hurt. I can't see either one of these guys backing down. Great fight. My number 3 is welterweight showdown that I think a lot of people are starting to call for: Terence Crawford versus Jaron Ennis. You talk about explosive matchups. I don't know if it gets any better. I really want to see how Ennis deals with someone with the ring IQ of a Terence Crawford, and how Crawford deals with someone as talented and with the physical dimensions of a Jaron Ennis, and also has a pretty good ring IQ himself. It's just a terrific matchup, and both these guys are dogs. I don't see anyone folding, and I think that fight has to end in a stoppage. I can't see that fight going the distance, no way at all. And I understand some people might feel that, Ennis is not quite there yet in terms of a big fight appeal, but I feel that this fight's not that far away. I think we're kind of sleeping on boots of star power a little bit there, and I truly would love to see it. It's probably the best fight that can be made in the welterweight division at this time, and I think one that would resonate with casuals, and I think that given their styles, the action in the ring, it may be a fight we'll be talking about for years to come.
Yeah, I think you touched on it in the middle of that. I think it's almost like too good to be true, too good to happen, because maybe Ennis doesn't have quite the big enough name yet. But people who know how good Ennis is know how good this matchup is. Listen, I wouldn't pick anybody to beat Terence Crawford after what we saw against Errol Spence, but the physical tools that Ennis has, the things that we've seen him do in the ring, I think he is a legitimate threat to anybody, and that includes Terence Crawford. So that would be an unbelievable matchup. I just don't know if Crawford would want to do it. It's just this huge risk for maybe not the kind of gain that he wants, that he would get against like a really big name guy.
Right.
But I'll tell you this, if Crawford took that fight, I would have even more respect for him than I do now, because it's a really dangerous fight.
Yeah, it really, truly is. And, Oh man, just salivating just thinking about that fight. Exactly. It's just so incredible. But I understand where Terence is coming from. Would he even get the credit that he deserves? If he knocks his kid out, maybe they say, he wasn't that good, or
he wasn't we didn't know how there, like the way you
right. Yeah. Exactly. So it's high risk for Terence Crawford, and perhaps not the best of rewards. So if it doesn't happen, I get it, but I would certainly love to see it. Let's go on to number 2. I'll kick this one off. My number 2 is a fight I've wanted to see for so long, and I don't know how realistic it is, but I still want to see it. Gervonta Tank Davis versus Vasily Lomachenko. I've been calling for this fight for, it feels like an eon. But it's just a terrific matchup. We saw Lomachenko is still an elite fighter. A lot of people thought he won that fight against Devin Haney earlier this year. And we know what we have in Gervonta Tank Davis. I mean, one of the biggest stars in the sport, if not the biggest star in the sport of boxing. And not to mention a 5-time world champion, undefeated, and one of the hardest hitters in the game today, if not the hardest hitter in the game today. And it's a fight that's been talked about for so long. Now, I'm hearing talks that Lomachenko may fight George Kambosos, I guess. If that's the route that he wants to go, so be it. But Tank Davis, that's the fight I want to see. Gervonta Tank Davis versus Vasily Lomachenko. Let's give the fans what they want. And plus, I'm looking forward to Mike buying me a steak dinner if that fight does, in fact, happen. We bet.
I'm not picking Lomachenko.
Well, I'm getting a steak dinner out of somebody for this fight. I truly would love to see it. And I don't know how realistic it is, but hey, it's my wish list. And this is what I want for 2024.
My question would be, why not? I think that's such a terrific fight for both guys. Davis needs a big fight, and Lomachenko is one of the guys that can give him a big fight. He's obviously a proven guy with a track record, a legitimate threat. I don't care what anybody says. I mean, especially after what we saw with Lomachenko and Haney, he's a legitimate threat to anybody. And from Lomachenko's side, he wants to get back on top. Some people argue that he should have won the fight against Haney. So this would be another opportunity for him to get back to where he thinks he belongs. So for the fighters, it's like the perfect fight. And I think obviously the fans would buy into it. So I think that's like an almost perfect fight for that division. I mean, there's a few other guys obviously that Davis can fight that would be big fights, but this is certainly among those.
Yeah, I agree with you. Who you got for your number 2?
Okay, so speaking of Gervonta Davis, I just have him against another guy. I want to see Davis in a big fight, and this one would be a legitimate challenge for Tank. That's Isaac Cruz, so the rematch between Davis and Isaac Cruz. I know Davis fought with an injured hand, which hampered his performance in the first fight. I think you still have to give Cruz credit, though. I think a swarming guy who can take a big shot is just not the best style for Tank. We'll see what happens if they fight again. Maybe a Tank with 2 healthy fists would overwhelm Cruz. Maybe not. I kind of tend to think he wouldn't. I just don't think that Cruz's style is the best style for Davis. Maybe he gives Tank another tough fight, because of that ability and his style. I just think it's an absolutely fascinating matchup, and I think Cruz deserves a rematch, and I also think Davis deserves to have a chance to show that what happened in the first fight was kind of a fluke. So I think there's just a lot of different storylines that make this fight really interesting.
Yeah, I mean, there's still some questions from that fight because he did give Tank such a difficult fight, and injured hand or not, we not seen Davis like that before, and I'd love to see what would happen in a rematch. Can Cruz apply the same amount of pressure? Maybe Cruz is better in a rematch. Maybe he's learned from the first fight and got different things that he's going to implement in a rematch. And same with Tank. What does he do with 2 hands? Maybe we see a spectacular performance from him. What if Tank can stop Cruz? That would be quite a statement. So, lots and lots and lots of variables there and different things that can happen that would certainly make it a great fight. Now, our number 1, and I say our number 1 because we chose the same number 1, and that is Canelo Alvarez versus the winner of the David Benavidez versus Demetrius Andrade fight, November 25th on Showtime Pay-Per-View. clearly the winner of that fight is the top challenger at 168 to Canelo's undisputed kingdom. And I think that a win, for Benavidez, back-to-back wins over Caleb Plant and Demetrius-Andrade would be monstrous. I mean, you talk about credentials, those may be the best credentials at 168 right now, period. And same thing for Demetrius-Andrade. You come to 168 and you beat a monster in David Benavidez. That would solidify everything we've heard about this guy. We've seen his accolades, the 154 to 160. He hasn't quite gotten the credit or maybe the respect that he deserves, but certainly a win over Benavidez would certify him, would solidify him and make him the man to face Canelo Alvarez. So I definitely want to see Canelo fight the winner of Benavidez versus Andrade at some point in 2024.
Yep, I agree. That's why it was top my list. I stated the reason earlier. I've been clamoring for Alvarez Benavidez for a few years now. That to me is one of the best possible fights in boxing, maybe the best possible fight in boxing. A still capable legend in Canelo against a big, strong, young lion in Benavidez. It just doesn't get better than that. And if Andrade's able to beat Benavidez, which I think is possible, it would be an interesting matchup of an elite boxer puncher and Canelo against just a clever as they come seasoned technician in Andrade. So I'm not sure. I wouldn't be as excited about that fight because I've wanted the other one so long, but it definitely would be a fascinating fight. So yeah, Canelo versus the winner of the fight has to happen next year.
Yeah, I think so. And I think the fans are going to be clamoring for that fight right after November 25th. I think we're going to hear what the fans have to say, and hopefully we get a great outcome. And with that, that's going to do it for this week's show. We want to thank Tszyu for joining us. Don't forget, guys, this Saturday, Tszyu will be returning against Brian Mendoza in an explosive matchup on Showtime beginning at 10:30 p.m. Eastern Time. Of course, we want to thank you all for listening, and we'll be back next week for more interviews, more boxing talk right here on the PBC Podcast.